Talking Tottenham, a fantasyfocus.com production.
Welcome everyone to episode 160. Shakes, we're up to 160 of Talking Tottenham. It's Bucky, joined as always by Danny Shakes, and we sit here amidst a 45-day managerial drought. No news, all is calm on the new manager front. There's a lot of talk, there's a lot of conjecture out there, even with Poch apparently saying he's leaving the club, but then the club saying he's not leaving the club at PSG. There's a lot going on out there. Let's break it all down. We're going to answer some listener questions. We have a bunch of what I think are good ones, some a little bit more funny than others. You know, folks are in that off-season mood right now. But Danny Shakes, how are you this evening?
Bucks, I'm doing swell. Our listeners are much funnier than us, number one. Number two, 160th episode. Congratulations to you. Have you refreshed your Twitter more than 160 times today for any keywords? Pochettino, Spurs manager, anything of the like?
Not so much. I'm in the midst of a termite infestation over here. So that was a fun day of opening up the walls a little bit. It was a busy day here.
At the new place, termites?
I got infestation.
WDOs, as they call them here, wood destroying organisms.
Yeah. And it's a block place, so like it's super quiet because it's all block, but obviously there's like wood trim and everything like that. And so woke up over the weekend to just like a bunch of dead termites flying around. Well, they were dead, so they weren't flying at that moment.
They were just falling from wherever they were killed.
Called it in, and they're probably gonna have to bomb it. So it was a fun day with the termite specialist today. Yes.
This only kind of further supports the theory that it's just you in this place.
I agree. The ghost theories, they might be proven true. I'm not sure if the termite man was even a real person. He could have just manifested out of pure dust, and I'm not sure. But regardless, no, I haven't been refreshing the Twitter as much as I would usually do on a day like today. Lightning just scored. That's huge. It was a hell of a day, but I'm just frustrated right now because I feel like as the world turns, as other clubs are adding their new managers, you had Carlo Ancelotti. He's going to go to Real Madrid. That was quick as lightning. And it just seems like we're not really well structured right now to be able to name the manager of our choice. I'm just curious to get your thoughts. Are you frustrated like I am?
Yeah, super frustrated. It feels like there wasn't a defined plan. I'm sure it's going to be sold like we waited to get our guy, no matter who the guy is. If it's actually Pochettino, I guess that's how they're going to have to spin it. Had to wait for the season to end and then for him to get out of his contract with PSG. And then from there, figure out how that buyout worked. Maybe got a trade surge for him. I have no idea. The Ancelotti thing that you brought up, though, do you worry that just means now Potter will be off the table? Like if you're Everton, Ancelotti goes back to Real Madrid because coaches recycle, managers recycle far more in this sport, it seems, than any other. Maybe close second is NFL, American football. But I would think the first call for Everton is Graham Potter.
I could see them going a few different directions, though, to be honest.
Well, I guess I just worry. I worry about maybe I'm the glass half empty guy on the manager search. Usually I'm the glass half full guy on other things, Bucks. You're obviously going to predict every victory scoreline, so that's you on the glass half full. But I mean, I almost worry it's like Poch won't get out of his contract. Conte's not the right fit. Potter suddenly disappears to Everton. Ten Hag, ETH is suddenly, not suddenly, but just he's like, I'm good at Ajax. And then next thing you know, you're just holding your jock and you're calling like the old Roma coach or something. So I think that way. Like I worry more about that than I am like, oh, who are we going to get? It's going to be a big name. Is it Poch's return?
So if I'm Potter, first off, the whole Poch thing is madness. I see Alex Asher here in the comments. Should have taken the 25-1 Poch odds when I had the chance. I'm still not sold on the fact that he's coming home.
Sold on the fact that he is, or sold on just the experience, or just what the second stint would be like?
That's a great question. I'll be honest. I'm not sure what we get out of Poch aside from the fact that we love the guy. I'd welcome him back with just the biggest hug in the world, a virtual hug, of course. There's a lot of things that I like about his style, but at the same time, a general complaint is like, what's plan B with Poch? If plan A fails, he has a bad habit of just never changing the approach, getting the subs wrong. There's things that worry me about Poch in terms of things that I don't think he learned from his previous experience at Spurs when he was at PSG. Not winning the league scares the crap out of me if you're at PSG. And there's a bunch of different things, not, advancing there in Champions League. So there's a part of me that's like, of course I want our boy back. Like, that's our guy. We love him to death. But there's another big part of me that's just concerned about results and whether or not the evolution really that he evolved at all at PSG, number one, evolved on his year off on the jet ski. I'm not sure that he did. So that concerns me, but the conjecture surrounding the Poch potential rehire, it just seems like a media blitz and not so much of something that's founded in reality. That's just my perspective on it.
So you're saying he only knows how to drive the jet ski one way. He's not able to make adjustments on the fly.
Yeah, he's a straight line jet ski man.
I think he carves some waves.
I mean, he does what he can with it, but he's not exactly, he's not a sleuth out there. He's not like an absolute stud on the jet ski. He's still learning.
He's a former world-class athlete, Bucks. He's got the calves for the carves.
He is growing the hair out a little bit, and I hope that he gets back to the
beard. I kind of want like the old man from the North beard from Poch.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming home. But back to Potter with Everton. Okay, if you're Graham Potter, it seems like he's like our last choice, kind of like the safety valve.
You think it's like the contract was done like 3 weeks ago, and then we were just like, we'll call you. Like we're that. He's like the backup call. Got the number at the bar, and he's just on standby.
Ooh, wow.
Like date
just
for the
waiting
prom.
Patiently.
Date for the prom. And meanwhile, like Spurs are just going through every other girl there. Like asking.
Yeah, they're the backup.
Yeah.
The backup.
The backup to the backup.
I see Spurs as a definite project, but Everton's the same way. And the other factor is, what is their spending going to be like as they evolve to the new stadium? It just seems like the table's set a little bit better for Spurs, even though it's easy as a Spurs supporter to be frustrated with our results last 2 seasons. However, the infrastructure is already all built out, whereas Everton is kind of where we were 4 or 5 years ago, right? In terms of the initial planning of the stadium, they're going to roll that out. I'm not sure what they're doing about training facilities, things like that. So I'm not so much worried that Potter goes to Everton, just in terms of what do you think Graham Potter finds more attractive, Tottenham or Everton?
Well,
for the reasons
Spurs
I stated.
is a much, with all due respect to our boy EJ and any Everton supporter that for whatever reason listens to this podcast, but Spurs are a bigger job. I wouldn't say 4 to 5 years. I'd say they're like 10 years behind Spurs. Maybe you're talking about figuring out building this new stadium, training ground, all these things, which that's still a little bit away. But as far as like the shape of the team for Spurs 5 years ago, night and day, it was a pretty up and coming team for Spurs. But if you're Potter, I guess maybe the way I kind of looked at it is there's a lot less pressure at Everton versus Spurs. And I'm sure he wants to tackle the biggest job and the biggest stage, and that's probably the way he's built or thinks. But I mean, it does seem like to go from Brighton to Spurs. I think I talked about this maybe a podcast or two ago, Bucks. It did feel like there was that Newcastle or Everton maybe stone in between the two, before he jumps to a top 6 program. If he, is a manager that can deliver as he goes up each and every, ladder rung. So, I mean, sure. If it was like, here's door A, here's door B, door A is Spurs, he takes that 10 times out of 10. It's just the fit with Everton might work better for him in the long run. It's just, you won't know that until after it's done. And there's got to be that sense of pride where if it's truly like, here's our contract, it's just signed by you, but it needs to be countersigned by Daniel Levy, and he just hasn't done it yet. And he's not picking up his phone calls. And he's not texting you as much as he used to beforehand, back when Spurs were a little more hot to trot before a couple other guys showed up. Then maybe you're going to say fuck this and go a different route if there is someone else that's checking you out.
Yeah, I mean, Potter potentially is
We've
just
seen that Prawn story
refreshing.
before.
Yeah.
It's only the backup plan's no longer available and should have been what you went with.
God, it's a mess right now. And then with Poch, here's my angle on like Conte and Poch. Both are going to be far more costly than bringing in any of the other options, it seems like. So are we in a position where there's the rumors about how he wants a cheap manager, somebody who's easy to oversee and to manipulate and all this stuff. And it's like, where do these rumors come from, one? And two, I just can't see us doing anything that's going to cost us the amount of money that it would for Conte or even for Poch, because we don't know what the makeup of that breakup would be. And it seems like we're just reinventing the wheel here over and over and over again and just going back to it with these big time managers. And Poch, despite a lack of titles or trophies, he's still a big player. I mean, he manages PSG, for Christ's sake, and took Spurs to a Champions League final. So there's a big part of me that just feels like we need to be a little bit more frugal and thoughtful to who we bring in and what the direction is, not just for next season, but for 3 to 4 seasons out. And I understand that 3 to 4 seasons, 5 seasons in the Premier League is a lifetime for these managers with the current turnover rates. But I just feel that that's what we need, because despite us getting a bit older in certain positions, the core of the team is still very young. And I think building that out for 3-4 years is more important to me long term than just getting a mercenary in there that for whatever reason thinks they have that perfect light bulb idea of how to make something that hasn't worked for multiple seasons work again.
See, I've already ruled out Conte because what you're seeing with Inter, not that Spurs would just immediately sell if they had success, but obviously wherever he goes, yes, success does find him in like the first year or two, and then it blows up and he moves on. And to just repeat basically what maybe you had with Jose Mourinho without knowing if you actually win, because let's be real, it's not like Spurs have the same resources as Chelsea, like his prior run in the EPL where he did have success there before blowing it up. I just can't see Spurs running it back for, like you said, such a costly manager, and also probably with the manager that's just going to make these demands that probably the board or Levy will not meet. So I just don't think it's the right fit. Maybe he takes a year off. Maybe he, Ancelotti just went to Real. I don't know. Maybe he'd go to PSG if Poch has like truly just like turned in his resignation letter. But I just kind of don't see the Conte angle at all. I didn't see it like when it happened either. Maybe for that brief 10 minutes when he just quit Inter, just because you're like, where else would he go? But I mean, I've pretty much ruled that one out. Now with Poch, I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's like you get back together with a girl that you had a failed relationship with. It either goes spectacularly terrible and it just ends in fireworks and blows up, or I guess you marry the girl, right? I mean, when you get back together, it's pretty binary. It's one way or the other. And, it's one of those, I did mention there's more turnover in this world and more recycling of managers than anywhere else than in like apparently top, football, especially in UEFA. And if this crazy SOB just quit PSG, rejected Real Madrid, and now wants to go with Spurs, maybe this shit will actually work. I mean, just think of like if that's really what just happened. Like he's just going to terminate his contract and then shun PSG and then shun Real Madrid, tell Juventus sorry, and then just go back to Spurs. I mean, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it would be mind-blowing if we do it. And again, I would be happy because I do think that Poch at least looks at it like a project. We got top 10 here joining us over there in England. It looks like 1:55 a.m. Mary Poch, 25 years will do. Exactly. If we're getting Poch for 25 years, it would take some of the worst mishaps ever to not get one title or one trophy within 25 years under his stead. I'd be completely up for it, but it just seems so manufactured by the media to a certain extent, because at this juncture, we still haven't seen Poch come out and say, I'm leaving PSG and we're going to deal with the ramifications. It just all seems like rumors. But for me, until we know, which hopefully we're going to find out in the next 2 weeks, but then you have Euros starting, and then you have, Euros start the end of next week. So then did we just get this pushed all the way back to like mid-July? So we're sitting here in a rumor that Levy might be playing a little bit coy so that he doesn't need to pay the sitting manager during this time when the Euros are going on. And it all seems like, man, every day it's like more bad news regarding the mismanagement of Spurs.
So, yeah, it's fun to talk about the manager situation where you're talking about the available candidates, but when you flip it on its head and talk about just the absolute shit show that is this hiring search, and I have no idea, it's like you read everything on Twitter, but you hear people say like, no other, top team from the top 5 leagues in all of Europe have gone this long to hire someone. What is Leicester on their second or third transfer in? Spurs don't have a manager yet. It just feels like it's quite disorganized over there. And like I said at the top of the show, I mean, they're going to spin it like, oh, we had to wait to get our guy. This would make more sense. You're going to sacrifice those 3 weeks while, it seems like chaos to have the right fit and move forward. But it's funny how the right fit's just like what you had 18 months ago, if that's truly like the way it ends up. So I don't know, Bucks. It does not feel pretty confident inducing to me that the plan is like this fluid, real bullet pointed out, like strategic operation going on at the top. So, I mean, I don't know what to make from it. I would think it'd be absurd if June 11th, or if that's when Euros start, and Spurs don't know who their manager is yet. That'd be ridiculous. But I was thinking this, and push back if you think I'm wrong. Out of all the managers that you could try to argue, like, look, we're not rebuilding, we're just doing a quick retool or reset, and we're going to be out for it next year. Really, Poch is the only one that could come back in, right? It's like you're selling this Poch, ball that's back in our lives after it being so successful until the very end. Whereas, like, with Conte, it could still like blow up in everyone's faces, just like it did Mourinho. It seems like you can't go to him because just flat out, like, you don't want the same thing to just repeat itself that happened with Mourinho. So, and same would go to like any other probably like, manager that comes in as like a win now type guy. So it's like Poch might be the only avenue for Levy if his goal is still to like talk Harry Kane into staying and saying, hey, look, give it one more run before, next year. Then I promise this is the year, Harry will let you free. So maybe this is pretty much all Levy has.
He's the one card that he can show in his hand.
It might
like,
be.
That's it.
Well, like,
Jesus.
When we were talking about Kane staying, I mean, I didn't say this angle, but I couldn't think of an angle why he would stay, aside from just Levy just being a jerk and say, hey, I know I might have told you 150 million if I hear it, or negotiate it. Now he's like, oh, it's $200 million to let you leave, or 200 million pounds, whatever he said. And it just felt like no matter what, it's either Kane leaves or he's all pissed off because Levy's just like, shut the door. No, I know I might have told you last year, but psych, not happening. So this would be the only other angle to maybe keep Kane happy and also the fans happy. I don't know. With that said, like, I know he loves Poch, but like, does he love Poch that much where Poch just talks him into staying? Especially if Man City, who just lost 1-0 to Chelsea and really needed a striker, in
With
that
Aguero
Champions League
out,
final. Yeah. Like they're probably going to green light it. They got money for days over there.
Well,
so
it's a country. So
money for a lot of oil. Oil's up lately, $2.
Yeah, I can tell. Things are
gas pump.
wacky right now with the supply chains. My God.
COVID reopen, man.
I do enjoy the
concrete and
fact.
lumber right now. It's nuts. It's tough to build your third and fourth houses these days.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, softball it.
Yeah, I just laid it up there for
you. Straight sitter.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, so do me a favor. Rank these 4 managers in terms of what you would like to see. Poch, Conte, Potter, and Ten Hag. rank them 1 to 4 in terms of who you most would like to see patrolling the sidelines for Spurs.
Poch 1, ETH 2, Potter 3, Conti 4. And my rationale and I was team ETH, but I'm sure like if Levy looks at it, he probably thinks, they play similar style ball. I have familiarization with Poch. I've worked well with him in the past. And shit, they played each other in the semifinals of Champions League 2 years ago, and Poch beat him. So, not that that's an all things equal type thing, but if you're just trying to kind of get a similar style manager and maybe it costs the same because he just signed a brand new contract, Ten Hag did, then I just think kind of looking at it that way, Poch is just the one above him. What about you?
Okay. I'm going to go Potter, Poch, Ten Hag, Conti.
Okay. So we're similar. It's just flipping the pot. You just have all the belief in the world of Potter.
I do.
I just don't understand it.
And it's not the results don't matter to me. What matters to me is a guy that gets his team playing. But you were never going to finish 9th or 8th.
No, you're right.
With the wage structures there at Brighton, it's not an attractive place for players. But at the end of the day, he's able to get something out of players to this buy-in factor, similar to Poch in the early runs, like early 15, when all of a sudden you saw us starting to piece things together. And sure, back then, we were on the ascent, and now it seems like things have really tapered down a bit and stabilized in terms of, where we're finishing and how we really look week over week. But for me, Potter, somebody has to give him a shot. And I understand what you're saying about the stepping stone with a place like Everton, who, finishes 10th last season. They've been an up and down club, and they definitely have a lot more resources than a team like Brighton. So I understand why that would be attractive as a project for a guy like Potter before taking that next step. But I said it last week. I just don't feel like right now we are the huge, big club that we all really perceive us as. I look at us as, yes, do we have the facilities? Do we have the best player in the world, Harry Kane? We have all those things for now, but the facilities will stay. The players will go. The players will get aged out. The players will demand a lot of money in the transfer market, which is something we need to at least bank on moving forward to kind of start the cycle over. Do you think Poch is really up for a world where Harry Kane does leave Spurs? Because I think that's the question. I wouldn't be so sure.
Whereas you think Potter is kind of ready for anything thrown at him, whether it's the current team as it's made up, or if it's suddenly just a bunch of kids, with a rebuild plan, or it's like we're running it all back, bring in a couple other older players and see what's going on. So you're saying Potter's probably more malleable, I guess, to the situation?
I think they're both malleable, but
Yeah.
I just feel that Potter, coming from a place like Brighton, would probably find a way to just get that little bit more out of whatever players are starting for him on the day.
I will say, out of all the rumors I've read and all the Twitter bullshit I've read, never once did I read Poch wants to come back to Spurs if he can talk Harry Kane into staying. Said he would, of course, try to talk Harry Kane into staying, but it wasn't a, I will come if you do this type situation. The only
if
two
you
demands,
build it, they will come.
I'm sure Poch is like, bitch, I already built it, and then y'all fucked it up. The only two demands I read were like a 4-year contract that cannot be broken or whatever it was, like just like guaranteed, and what was the other thing? Oh, like just complete autonomy. Like he has all player personnel decisions, which if that's the case, Poch, you better get that shit in writing.
Yeah, and here you go.
You better get that shit in writing with Daniel Levy. Just like, Kane, I'll show you.
I think Poch wouldn't mind losing Kane if Levy lets him have actual control in the market. And I think that's a good point.
That's a very good point.
And I don't think Poch is the type of guy that's just going to go out there on a crazy spending spree. So I'd be totally fine with Poch. I'm looking more at 4 or 5 years from now. And do I think that Poch is also a builder? I do. It's just Poch has already done things at the highest level at PSG. So it's almost like what else really is there for Spurs aside from lifting silverware? And then if he does lift silverware, is that a long-term appointment, or is that literally just, the Jose goal with a completely different mentality from a management perspective, but that goal of just getting Spurs over the hump? Do you think that factors in with Poch, or do you think he would be a long-term appointment regardless of whether or not we achieve those highest highs?
I mean, if he's demanding a 4-year contract, and really he's built it before, at Southampton and at Spurs. I mean, it almost kind of opens itself to like the contrarian argument of just Poch is where he is because he got lucky. Just, whatever you think of Spurs incoming transfers these last 4 years, just at some point in time, they brought in Pekion, Toby, Delhi on great business, Erickson, Harry Kane, was in their program. Like he could have just stumbled onto like this, like a generational team for Spurs, and then just kind of rode that wave. And maybe if it was a different manager at the helm, like you could argue something different might have happened in all of like the FA Cup semifinal losses and the EPL runs that just fizzled out a few years back. But I think Poch at his age, to me, I worry more about his burnout than I do probably his mindset of rebuilding. I think if it was like, I have to rebuild and I know I have a couple years to get this right, I almost feel like he wouldn't have a problem with that, where he'd be, maybe this speaks to PSG. It's like allegedly he's still living in a hotel and it's like he plugs in and he's in the middle of this, it's like, what's his face? Tuchel didn't do him any favors, but he's like behind in this race to win the League One title and doesn't get the job done. He was behind, and then he's thrown into Champions League. They did beat Barcelona, right? But at the end of the day, kind of fizzled out in the semis against Man City, who were just better. So, I mean, maybe just like going immediately into the pressure cooker wasn't for him anyway.
It's a good point. Familiarity breeds success.
It could. It absolutely could. He knows where his office is. If he came back, probably knows where he's staying, knows where to go to the training ground. He knows like where the vending machines are.
You remember the pictures he'd always take when somebody signed a new contract?
I saw a funny meme. Apparently,
I sent you that funny meme, which was just Poch hugging Poch.
Yeah,
I like that. Would we get Maurizio back, his son?
Sure. What I mean, at this point, if Levy's going tail between his legs, asking Poch to come back while on his knees in his suit, then I'm sure Poch could get me or you in there on the sideline as a ball boy.
We've got top 10 1987 here. How do we get back into the top 4? Equal Poch. Yes, come back as a manager rather than a coach. I agree there, but we have to see that evolution. I think he's a very fine coach in terms of getting the most out of his set of players, but the in-game management and the setup and the tactics, especially shifting tactics, say at halftime or 30 minutes in, that needs to improve. And unfortunately, I didn't quite see that from him at PSG during the Champions League run. Hand up, I haven't watched a single League One game, so I have no clue what the hell happened there with Lille. I think Lille they were able to get the most out of their scouting, and they were just well structured with their youth, and they actually turned into a very, very good team this year. But PSG should still win that running away. So that's like the main concern with me and Poch. But it'll take patience. And I see Ian in the comments, top 10 in the comments here talking about you have to have patience. Top 4 is achievable. I believe we were close this season even. We were very close this season. The problem was the breakdowns were just so substantial and dropping leads, dropping points. It was just brutal to watch. And at the end of the day, we were right there. Hell, we get a couple of results to go the other way. We could have finished second or third this season.
Yeah.
So
that's why I think top 4 is attainable. I disagree with our boy Ian Ferguson, thinking if Poch comes back, or even anyone really, in 2 seasons, it looks like Spurs would take to get to a top 4 finish. I mean, Chelsea's up and coming. Yes, that there's no way around that. Liverpool will probably reload and be Liverpool. Man City's Man City. That 4th spot, though, I mean, Spurs crushed Man U, not too many months ago. and no one's trusting Arsenal doing anything big next year. So, I mean, that top 4 spot to me, Bucks, that 4th place there is completely attainable. And Spurs could have even gotten it, just like you said, if a couple other if games were 80 minutes long, Spurs would probably be in 3rd or whatever it would be. But so I think it's a little more attainable than that. I really think next year it's like the team can win. And where I think Poch is a lot different than Mourinho's, Poch is very like team chemistry, team belief, having trust in his players, whereas Mourinho are like, you are chess pieces on the board and I play it and I'm the grandmaster. So, pawn, you can only do this, bishop, you can only do that. Spurs really lacked on their depth. It seemed like they had some depth there that just they never utilized, whether it was Jose never even going to a sub or subbing too late or just not trusting players in specific situations where in a season that was as long as the one we just experienced, maybe Poch would have got that extra ounce out of the backups that had to come in and make those starts when certain players were injured or just when the games were coming hot and heavy. And maybe that's where he would have eked out those extra points. There would have been more team belief, and it probably would have led to more team depth that would have helped deliver some better results.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Let's hop into some listener questions here to wrap our show here. All right, so here's Zach Angelos here. Would you accept Sterling and Gabriel Jesus for Harry Kane? So Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus.
No, I would not. I would prefer, especially in this market, Jesus plus cash. And that's because there might be some beaten down prices. I mean, shit, I heard Inter's doing a fire sale, like garage sale type. Do they have garage sales other places besides the United States?
I mean, I think you just call it like kind of a, I mean, yeah, I think that people sell items throughout the world, Shakes.
Like you ever see Storage Wars, Bucks? I hear that's what Inter's doing. They're just rolling the door up and you just get to look inside real quick and then you just like throw lowball bids.
Well, aren't they all still like hanging on to the ESL thing too? Like them, Barcelona, Real.
Yeah,
and
they're
just saying,
God damn.
Yeah,
like they're just asking to get, I guess where that's good for the EPL teams is now they're going to get the brunt of the punishment.
Because they keep on trying to force their hand with this and saying this is still an attainable goal. We will still break into a Super League. Yes, it will only be 4 teams, but God damn it, we're going to get the most out of this. Yeah. I'm not sure though.
Before I get your answer on this question though, I do want to throw in, I'm good with Jesus plus cash, but I'd also demand Man City throw in like prospects. And this is probably a much more American way of thinking. Like you and I follow baseball. It would happen more in there. It also happens in pro hockey. But Man City, there are, I'm not saying it's like the next Foden's just swimming around in there, but you could make some demands to take like their top midfielder, their top forward that's all under age 20, throw them in your development program and take those guys as your add-ons with Jesus and with cash. So that's the way I would look at a player plus cash type move. Is I'd like to get like a handful of players, especially from a team that does invest. I mean, I know Man City's known to go out and buy players, but they still invest in their youth program pretty well. So I would look for something more like that. Also, though, I just have a complete bias where I'm against Raheem Sterling. I apologize for it to everyone. I still think Foden should even just play over Sterling for Team England. Shit, you could talk me into Grealish playing over him. So
Foden's going to start.
Foden better start, and Mount will start. So I don't know where Sterling's better off as a sub. My Sterling bias is pretty bad, but I'd rather have Jesus, cash plus prospects.
Sterling is a complete game changer.
So you would take Sterling and Jesus
in like 40 mil.
Well, you're not getting that.
Why not? If the price is 150. What do you think Sterling is in this market? You're the
Transfermarkt? Yeah. Transfermarkt.uk.
Yeah, check that out. What do we have for Sterling? 60, 50, 40?
Did we ever find out why? Oh, no, I bet he's way more than that. They have it at 90 euro.
90?
No, 90. Yep, 90 euro. So,
good Lord. So what is that? Like 82?
How old do you think Sterling is?
26.
Yep, right on the net head. He feels older, right?
He does. Yeah. But he's been doing it for a long time. I love Raheem Sterling as a player.
No, he's a very good player. I just think
he just opens up a lot of possibilities. But yeah, would I take that with some cash? Absolutely. Just because we're not going to beat the drum here. We're just beating a dead horse when we talk about my thoughts on whether or not unloading Kane is a necessity in terms of long-term growth here. That is where I stand, but we'll get there. We got another one here from Silky Lovar, Trophyless Crisco. If Lloris leaves this year or next year for sure, and Kane leaves, who is the next Spurs captain? Shakes.
A lot of ifs. Gun to my head, I'd say Højbjerg. Now, you could argue that he hasn't been on the team long enough if you did want to give it to someone that's been there a longer time. I would say if it's Poch as the manager, he'd possibly give it to Toby. I think him and Toby, I think he actually even gave him the armband before. So I think Toby would be my pick if it's Poch. Other than that, like as I'm talking to you, the reason I'm kind of taking my time is I'm like looking through the roster. I don't think Son gets it. I don't think any of our midfield really gets it outside of Højbjerg. It's not going to Dyer. Yeah, it would just have to be Toby. What's your answer?
Okay. If he's still around, Sissoko, even if he's not on the pitch, that's the real captain. That's the real captain.
That is the real captain.
Yeah, but I have a feeling he's going to be shipped out, which is fine. It'll break my heart, but I'll get over it just like anything, like this termite situation. You just try to get some sleep and really think on matters. I would say Højbjerg is there. But yeah, if it's Poch, then I think Toby is the logical choice. However, with the play of Lloris last year, I'm not sure that we sell him for the last contract year. I think we just hang on to Lloris. He'll be the captain next season. And then who knows who we're going to be adding, who's going to be departing in terms of some of the older guard there for Spurs. But yeah, it's pretty simple for me. It's either going to be Højbjerg or Toby, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting. Ben Davis.
Davis could be another one too. I mean, I'm on I think also Davis is a Poch player where he'd stay then. Whereas if it was either Jose still staying or if it was just a new manager, I'd wonder if he'd be on the chopping block, the transfer table. But yeah, I think selling on Toby is the right decision here.
Okay. So we got Brian Lozen here. I'm burnt out from the manager talk every day. So are we. We only went for 30 minutes on it today. Every day is a saturation of news, but no real answers, it seems. I know. Frustrating. What do we think of next year's home kit? Don't think you guys have expressed opinions on them yet. What are your thoughts on that plain Jane home kit?
I like it. To me, it's when it can be like that pure looking, like that simple, yet seem like classy and put together. I mean, I feel like that's tough to pull off sometimes. I wonder, my one little back of my mind issue with it would be, will I just feel the same when I'm watching it on TV? Like, it will just look like they're wearing a bunch of t-shirts. But I'm not too worried about that, Bucks. So I give it like a good 8 out of 10. I don't know if I'm giving it 9 out of 10, but 8 out of 10 for me.
I like it. Simple is good. I do wish there was some navy piping on it, though. Like a navy collar, navy piping on the sleeves. Like what we had for, 3 years from now, where we had that Volt piping with the navy blue. That looks really cool. I would just like to see that. But, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it. The only complaint is the same complaint we've had for years now, which is the red AIA. It just kills me. Because that shirt, if we had a navy AIA on there, would be our classiest kit in a long time. I would love it, but the red just kills me. And when you don't have anything else offsetting that red,
right?
It's just flat red. I understand that AIA probably pays us a shitload of money, but the fact that they won't budge on the fact that we don't want red on our kits, and we allow this to happen, and
it tells you what, Bucks. We're all about a little money.
Of course, we're all about the money.
What I don't get is why can't it be navy? I mean, shit, all the other kits, they're different colors.
Because red is like a very in Chinese culture, red is what you want for
I
that
learned something
script.
then.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
like a important color in that culture. So I understand from a branding perspective if you're AIA, but of course, why does it have to be Spurs that have the red AIA? Like cinch with the purple. I wouldn't mind a little purple on there, a little spurple. Spurs purple. Which let's talk about those. I like it. I would say you're
Do
right.
you?
8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. I like the new kits. I think they're pretty sharp. However, the rumors of the other kits are pretty wild. There's the one that's basically just like an acid trip that they're showing out there, which
So is
looks
that
really
one
cool.
real?
Yeah, I think it is.
Oh my God.
Like
I'm in.
Starry Night, but on acid. Yeah. I guess Starry Night was on acid too.
I feel
So,
like
yeah.
the Man City plaids did well, probably in sales, right? So is
The
that what we're
Paisleys?
trying to? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or did I say
Paisley did well.
Paisleys? I meant to say, not plaids.
Now, West Brom had the plaids.
Yes, that's rough.
Those kits, they need to just burn those. I bet you could get those on a fire sale right now, probably at a garage sale, as you mentioned earlier. The acid trip ones look really cool. And then there's that weird purple geometric type of thing with the purple and the neon yellow that I've seen. So it'll be interesting to see. And Spurs, in their ways, are just going to wait until the very end to release the kits. So we will have no clue what's going on probably until the first away game when we're about to wear them.
They handle their kit release like their manager search.
Correct. Very slowly. All right, so we got Big White Hart Lane here. Spurs boys want to know whether Tottenham are the football equivalent of the U.S. hand egg team, the Dallas Cowboys. Also, which other U.S. franchise sport club would Spurs be equivalent to? And we had Ian chime in here with the Cincinnati Bengals. Ownership that brings new meaning to the word cheap, won't invest long term, refuses to listen to fan input, and hasn't won anything in decades, even with the talent to make it happen every few years. So, number one, Cowboys. Is this a good comparison in your mind?
I don't think so. And if you live in the States, it's like you have to understand that the Dallas Cowboys are by far and away the biggest draw. Like, they used to be called America's team, and they also had won in the 90s as well. They won 3 Super Bowls then. So this was a team that was pretty much vilified and hated by anyone that wasn't a Cowboys fan. But at the same time, they were like must-watch TV, or they would get the biggest ratings. So they would always get, for instance, before there was, all these channels and streaming and all that, if it was just there was one national TV game, odds are it was going to be a Cowboys game. If they had any choice, the networks would always pick the Cowboys. So that's where it comes. Yeah, to me, that's not Spurs. It would be like it'd probably be closer like Manchester United or Liverpool, probably something like that. Just because it's like they have like the notoriety where like it sounds like everyone knows who the Dallas Cowboys are throughout the world. Whereas Spurs probably not so much as Manchester United or Liverpool or maybe even Chelsea. So for Spurs to compare them to an NFL team, right now, maybe the LA Rams, they got a brand new stadium and they have not won anything. That would be maybe a comparison in NFL. Where NFL is tough is we have salary caps and everyone is forced to spend a certain amount of money. So even though you could say certain times they're cheaping out, quote unquote, at the end of the day, they still got to spend enough to get to that cap level. I push back on the Cowboys though, because they're constantly talked about. Like, I just can't stress that enough. Like, I could put on ESPN in May and they're talking about Cowboys 4th round draft picks and shit like that. And I just don't think Spurs get that coverage. And I don't think they're as hated as the Cowboys are, like in the States. I get the new stadium comparison. But that's about it.
I think you nailed it. I think Man U is a better comparison. Like, modern Man U is a better comparison.
And when's last time club. Man U won the Prem, or really anything besides Europa? They haven't won in a while.
Yeah, it's been a rough road for them, but there are some parallels in my opinion billion-dollar stadium. You know, it looks like a giant alien starship type of thing. Very comparable in that light. Obviously, where Dallas built is also right where their old stadium was there. Or no, it wasn't. The old stadium was in Irving, right? And then they
No,
moved to Arlington.
I think they moved, but not far from it.
Fair
They
enough.
didn't build it on the ground, but that's why when LA Rams, they're a new stadium and they just haven't won. And they're a team that gets talked about and they should do good things this year, but bet they don't deliver again, Bucks.
So who would you compare Spurs to for an American team? It doesn't need to be football. It could be baseball or something like that.
You're not going to like this, but I kind of think the Rays, Tampa Rays, because they do a lot more with their budget in past years and they exceeded expectations. But the Rays, although they've gotten to the World Series twice in maybe the last few years or 20 years, whatever it might be, they haven't won it.
12 years.
13
years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay Rays because they seem to do well with some of their players and the budget they have. The only difference there is the Rays have been saying they're going to get a new stadium for about 10 years, where Spurs actually delivered on it.
Fair.
But when it comes to like player management and then just kind of like what the end result ends up being, and I'm sure it drives you crazy as a Rays fan that it's like they just kind of miss out. And probably if they had one bat and one more pitcher, like maybe that would have pushed them over the, to winning it all, but that didn't happen.
Or maybe not pull a guy in the 5th inning when he's delivering a shutout and pitching the best I've ever seen him pitch before in a crucial game for elimination. Yeah, I mean, that would have made me a little bit happier. So it's kind of like not pulling the proper subs, or going with the sub too early. For the record, though, with the Dallas Stadium, Tottenham Stadium just destroys Dallas's stadium. And Dallas's stadium, similar, it's got like the big bars and the different layers to it that are really good as a consumer, as a fan, to go in, socialize pregame, things like that. The problem with that goddamn stadium, Shakes, is number one, you are so far away from the pitch or from the field for football. And you and I have been there for a basketball game too. And it's absurd how large the place is, but it feels cavernous. It feels hollow. And then that stupid Jumbotron that legitimately goes for 100 yards from one end of the field to the other, right in the middle of your vantage point. It is so distracting if you're even in the middle tiers. I've been there twice. I've sat in the middle and I've sat up top. Both times, I couldn't take my eyes off this stupid screen. It was like I wasn't even watching the actual game because you got this mega screen. It just looks like, the screen from God. And you're sitting there like, Jerry, why? Why do we need this? And it's a lot nicer at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
So when I went, I stayed in a suite. So that was a good experience for me. So it's tough for me to talk trash about the stadium. Plus, I have not been to the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yet. But the suite was good time, Bucks, if you're wondering. It does seem, though, Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, designed the stadium like my wife would design like a house. Like functionally, it's like she's not really thinking about that. She just wants to know how it looks and like how it'll present on TV. Just like Jerry
she doesn't
Jones.
Listen.
Yeah. Well, by this point, what are we, minute 45? Yeah. So I think that's how, it's like when it's like, oh, did you think about like where the sink would be in the kitchen? No, I think it looked beautiful though if it did this. It's like that's how Jerry Jones thinks, like with the stadium. He wants the broadcast to show like the panoramic views and just be awestruck by it on TV, whereas really the person there is like you said, like watching the game in binoculars and sitting like by their standards really close.
So we did kind of piggyback on the concept of the lounge being right outside the locker room like it is at Cowboy Stadium.
There's a bunch of that now. We have that for the Orlando Magic. Like you can watch players walk by. Yeah. And I think the new the Red Wing hockey and Pistons basketball stadium, they have that. So I think that might have been taken from, I don't know if that was from the Cowboys, but wherever that came from. I think MetLife has that for the New York Giants.
I don't understand what people get out of that.
Get you riled up, man. There comes the Warriors, ready to go into battle.
I don't know about that, man. I'm good on that. Just take the field and play ball. Like it's simple as that. But yeah, I think the Tampa Bay Rays is actually a pretty good parallel, which is weird for me to think about. But yeah. All right, we got Jayhawk here. Do you think a less taxing European schedule next season will help Spurs? Mostly kids playing Europa Conference League matches until later in the competition? Question mark. Will you research these weird Conference League teams and cities with some Google Maps spying? I certainly will.
Yeah, that's a definite. The second answer.
Anybody that knows this show understands me as a person via this vehicle of Talking Tottenham. You understand I have a very, very odd obsession with Google Maps. And I love learning about different areas of the world. And I'll tell you what, I don't know where this journey is going to take us, but you guys are along for the ride. And Danny Shakes is going to be sitting here, and we're going to be like 8 minutes into my analysis of this Azerbaijan city and just looking over how beautiful it is. And Danny Shakes going to be like, Bucks, that is dragging way on, because that's what he does every time I mention Google Maps. So I will be doing that. Do I think it being less taxing is a valid piece of information? I do think it'll be just as taxing, because the main problem that I find throughout multiple managers now with Jose and Poch is we don't really seem apt to just throw in the youth and really make a go at it with the youth. So while in theory that does make sense and you would expect that to be the case, I'm not so sure that we're going to go down that route. And I think we're just going to try to just bust faces and take names.
I think we play the kids. I think Carabao Bank Energy and the Conference League, those will be kids until any sort of meaningful competition shows up, which could happen earlier, Bucks. Yeah, I guess the way the crazy Europa Conference League draw could pan out is maybe we do got Jose's Roma, the second round or whatever round stage that would be called. So
I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's possible.
Okay, maybe not.
Because there's going to be like 48 teams. You think like we're going to be in pot one.
Yeah, you're probably right. So it's like group stage too?
You have to go through qualification and then into group stage, but it starts with like 48
it should just be the
teams.
kids. And if we advance, we advance. If not, then we just kind of write it off and never talk about it again. We'll always have the Google Map search. I will be more prepared for the Google mapping because I didn't know how long you're going to drag it. So while you're like just dead air, like looking at whatever this road does leading to the stadium, I'll be able to like chime in with things like, oh, and their primary source of industry is banking. Like I'll have those types of tidbits for everybody.
We didn't have the YouTube back in those days. We were very
screen share it on the live.
I don't know if there's a legality issue with screen sharing
showing a city.
Maps. I don't know these things. I don't own Google Maps. I'm not, I'm not Tim Cook. I don't know.
I don't know if that Tim Cook reference, that's kind of the Dallas Cowboy reference for Spurs right there.
Okay, so if we are playing the youth, which I think we should do, then I think we're pretty good. I think we're pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, shit, anything's better than this last season, right? I mean, that was a lot of games at once, and Jose was pretty steadfast on trying to crank through Europa, and that didn't work out. And if we do get Poch back, I mean, we kind of know his recipe there. He doesn't really play like the full 11 till it gets pretty far on in these tournaments.
It's true. That is true.
I'm not talking like just like Poch is just back in our lives.
Should we bring back George, Kevin, and Kudu?
No, in fact, that's actually. I'm glad you brought that up. This might be one of my main concerns with Poch is he's in love with his old players. Like if you can get a 30 million or 35 million transfer fee for Dave, I think you just got to cut bait. I don't want Poch to be like, oh no, we'll resurrect him, my team. It's like, bro, like everyone's not figured this out. Let's take this money and reinvest it in other areas. Let's figure out right back too. So I worry about that stuff. Poch is coming in. It's like someone needs to show Poch like the last 20 EPL games that he coached Spurs. Just to remind him.
Is it going to be like a Clockwork Orange where they just have Poch like strapped into a chair with his eyeballs peeled open, and he just has to sit there and watch this horrifying
a
footage
tear
of his
floats
last couple
down.
matches.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hopefully not.
oh man, I never wanted to think about A Clockwork Orange again. It's one of those real hipster. It's a great film. It's just very hard to watch. Very
is a tough watch.
very troubling subject matter there with The Clockwork Orange. But maybe we'll have our own A Clockwork Potch.
Ugh.
And Levy is just pretty much putting him through the rehabilitation phase.
I still cannot believe Levy just tail between his legs right now.
I kind of like it. I think
mean,
it's great.
Yeah.
I kind of like it.
He just fired him for the documentary.
In summary, we don't have much to provide any of you out there. We appreciate we've had steady people here on this stream, interactions between the fans. We love you guys. Shakes, we got a clarification here from Top 10. In England, we have car boot sales. Everyone goes to a field and sells shite from the back of their car. I like that.
I do too.
Car boot.
That feels more like camaraderie community type. Like garage sales, it's like you kind of know about it and you have to like drive over somewhere. Whereas this seems like you go somewhere and it's all there together.
Probably beers flowing.
I would say. I mean, what don't we drink at? That's like a group event.
That's a fair point. I think the car boot sale, we need to bring that over here. Me and you just meet up in a field and start doing a little swap meet.
Shit, you're probably going to drink with your termite guy.
Well, we're drinking together right now. You just can't see him.
They're in the other room.
No, he's an apparition. So he's just floating right here next to me. I'm just punching him in the face right now.
In the ghost apartment.
It is a ghost apartment, but it's my ghost apartment. So yeah, car boot sale, A Clockwork Tangies. I don't mind that.
The ghost of Potch returns.
All right. Well, folks, we'll go ahead and wrap. Hopefully, the minute we have news and Danny Shakes and I can get on the mic, it'll be as soon as we can about our management position, a managerial position. Just get it done, Levy, for Christ's sake. This is dragging on way too long. And I don't think I can sit here and just wax eloquently regarding bullshit until we know what the plan is moving forward. I'm still Team Potter. Shakes is Team Potch. I respect your opinion, Shakes. And I would be stoked. I would be extremely excited if Potch comes back.
I was just going to ask you, give me just gun to your head. What does your heart tell you? Like, what's the decision made? Not what you want. I know you want Potter, but just when you hear the announcement, Spurs have hired manager blank. Who is it?
At this stage, I'd say it's Potch.
Me too. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And it seems like if it's not for PSG, like trying to stand in the way, it just happens.
I agree.
Shit.
I don't think PSG is going to stand in the way. I think they're already floating out trying to get Zidane.
Zidane or Conte, right? Both available.
Either or. So maybe the faster that happens in terms of the breakdown between Poch and them, we're in good shape.
One final conspiracy question that I wanted to add.
Okay.
Do you think there's any delay to this at all? Because then it allows Spurs to delay any Harry Kane conversations until after Euros.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Great little conspiracy on top of it, right?
I've already thought about that.
Maybe it'll come out Potter like the day before Euros. And it's just like they were sitting on it for 3 weeks.
Which is just so silly, but we'll find out more. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter at TTPodCoys. We've had tons of interaction on there lately, so appreciate all the love and support. Danny Shakes, sign the people off.
Let's go. New team, new season, new manager, eventually. Come on, you Spurs.
Coys, get it done. Sign a manager. Just sign anybody. Sissoko player manager. Coys.
Just get a guy.